I call them badasses. I think that's a shorter way to put it.
Yes.
I think we've seen that there's kind of a class of women who were in Congress in 2018 who flipped districts from red to blue. Abigail, badass in her own right, served in the CIA as an intelligence officer. Mikey, U.S. Navy helicopter pilot, and was a federal prosecutor. So I think they have these really great profiles. Also have real appeal, having both flipped districts from red to blue.
Ofirah Yheskel, this is Trailblaze. Welcome. You have been at the DNC. You've been on campaigns. You're now at the Democratic Governors Association. What the hell is going on in this election? And can you tell us what's at stake? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, well, these are the first two governor's races of Trump 2.0, and I think a real opportunity for us to show momentum as Democrats. And we're feeling pretty good about the races that Abigail Spanberger, who's our candidate in Virginia, and Mikey Sherrill, who's our candidate in New Jersey, are running. I think we're hearing all the time from voters that the economy and costs are what's really keeping them up at night. And in both these elections, they both rolled out plans to do something about it. In Virginia, I'm sure you know, there are a lot of federal workers who call Virginia home, and the DOGE layoffs have really had a harsh impact on Virginia's economy. And I think Abigail's really painted a point of contrast with Winsome Sears, who's the current lieutenant governor and a Republican, in that she's willing to stand up to the Trump administration and point out that it's hurting Virginia. And Winsome simply is not. And you'll find the same in New Jersey with Jack Ciattarelli and Mikey Sherrill. Jack Ciattarelli says he has no daylight with Trump, doesn't disagree with him on a single thing. I think, Jamal, you and I sitting here could find any number of things to disagree with him on. But Mikey Sherrill, I think, also has shown that she's willing to stand up for New Jerseyans and has a day one plan to do a state of emergency on energy costs, which I literally was just talking to somebody from New Jersey last week, and she was telling me her energy bill was $1,400 last month. So it's really hitting home. And I think she's really driving home this message about the economy and how she's going to take action. And both these, again, are a chance for us to make history, to elect two Democratic governors, in addition to the 8 historic women Democratic governors that we have currently. So we're feeling pretty good and are excited to hopefully next week have a win.
Okay, so let's take them one by one. So let's start in Virginia. So in Virginia, you just mentioned it's Winsome Earl Sears, who's lieutenant governor, versus
Mhm.
Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger. You know what's interesting about, actually, we could do all, including Mikey Sherrill. These women have a lot of national security
Totally. Yeah.
background, which is kind of amazing when you think about kind of the women who've run it for national office, whether it was Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris. They weren't women who came with real national security sort of street cred before they got to national, prominence. So it's interesting that now you've got these women who early in their careers really did. Was that a purposeful choice, you think, by some of the folks in the party to look for women like, Spanberger, like Mikey Sherrill, like the senator in Michigan, that there are all these women who are coming out with these great national security credentials?
Well, I think I call them badasses. I think that's a shorter way to put it.
Yes.
I think we've seen that there's kind of a class of women who were in Congress in 2018 who flipped districts from red to blue. And like you said, Abigail, badass in her own right, served in the CIA as an intelligence officer. Mikey, U.S. Navy helicopter pilot, and was a federal prosecutor. So I think they have these really great profiles that lend themselves to this, and then also have real appeal, having both flipped districts from red to blue. I think it gives them, a real kind of winning combo. And I think we're seeing more and more that folks are understanding just how important a governor is and how important the office is. And I think that's why you see so many folks like Abigail and Mikey looking at a governor's office where maybe in the past people would have stayed on the Hill. But I think we're starting to see more and more people understanding that the office of governor is a real place to get stuff done, as we like to say at the DGA.
Oh, that's probably the clean version of what you guys say in the in the real meeting.
Cleaned it up for you.
But it's okay. I'll let you keep it classy on the podcast. Tell us, why do you think governors are important? What does that mean when they get stuff done, especially in this moment when we have a federal government that I think people are feeling very disaffected from some of those choices that are being made by the president?
I think you put the nail on the head. We're always saying that they're the backstop against a lot of the chaos and dysfunction that we're seeing come out of Washington. And it if you want a point of contrast, I think Democratic governors are the people who are not just listening to voters, but then turning around and taking action on the things that are keeping them up at night. And whether it's on the economy, whether it's fully funding your kid's school, whether it's fixing the damn roads like Gretchen Whitmer has been talking about, whether it's bringing jobs back to your state, on any number of those issues, I think Democratic governors have a long list of results that they can turn around and show that they're delivering for people on. And so I think it's kind of that 1-2 punch of listening to you on your kitchen table issues, but then also being willing to stand up for you on fundamental freedoms. We're still talking about abortion rights. And fun fact, in both of these governor's races, this is the only two states who've not had a chance to vote in a governor's race since Roe versus Wade was overturned. So it's still very a live issue, protecting voting rights. I think people are really starting to understand that governors are, the folks who are able to take a stand and protect your voting rights. And that kind of combo of kitchen table issues and fundamental freedoms has been a real winning recipe for us, and why we have so many Democratic governors, and hope to add a couple more this week.
All right, so Congresswoman Spanberger is polling above 50% in most of these polls. She seems to be doing well. Does that mean that she's home free? Is this thing happening, and we all just need to sit back and relax and watch the fireworks next Tuesday?
Well, Jim, I'm sure you know the only poll that matters is on election day. But I do think, this is a race that we're taking very seriously. All three incumbents right now statewide are Republicans in Virginia. And we feel good about the race, but we're taking nothing for granted. So if you're in Virginia and haven't made a plan to vote, I urge you to please do that. Early voting's been going on for, I think, a month now. And as a
It's
sign of
over soon, though, right? Early
over
vote's over. I
over
think it
soon.
was on the 1st. Looked up,
I believe
November 1st.
so.
Yeah.
So please make your plan to vote if you haven't already, but we're not taking our foot off the gas. These races end up being sometimes tighter than we think.
Okay, so there's a little controversy in Virginia, then we're going to move to New Jersey quickly, about the Jay Jones Attorney General's race. As I saw a poll that showed the Republican candidate may be moving ahead, and that's causing some trouble. How are you guys handling that sort of text message scandal with Jay Jones?
Well, I think Abigail was very clear in condemning the text messages and saying that there's no place for political violence. And I think that's a really key message at the top of the ticket. And I think it'll be up to Virginia voters to decide what they do down ballot. But I think she's been very clear about condemning his remarks.
Okay. All right. So in New Jersey, it's a different case. In New Jersey, we've got kind of a tight race, and I'm now based in New Jersey. So I'm seeing these ads every single day. They're all over the place. The race is a little tighter, and I think we're seeing Mikey, Sherrill kind of hovering just at about 50% in some of the polls. We've seen the Republican governor candidate Jack Sherrill kind of move up to like maybe 5-ish points behind her. And as one New Jersey person said to me, a political person said to me, the question is how many people are lying when you think about these polls? Because what we've seen in New Jersey is the Democratic candidate seems to have a wider margin in the polls than they have on election day. How are you guys hedging against that kind of a drop off for election day?
Well, I think one, we're trying to make history in New Jersey. If Mikey Sherrill's elected, it'd be the first time in 6 years that we've had Democratic governors elected for 3 consecutive terms. And I think let's not forget that Phil Murphy was reelected by 3 points last time around. So we've been saying at the DGA this was always going to be a competitive race and that we're taking nothing for granted. But all of that table setting aside, I think Mikey Sherrill's running, again, a really strong race, has a really strong case to make for why she should be heading things up in Trenton. And I think, her making this bold plan on doing a state of emergency on energy prices just shows what kind of leader she'll be on day one. Somebody who's creative, willing to work with anybody, but also take on people if it means, making sure that New Jerseyans' bottom lines are a little bit better at the end of every month. And Jack Ciattarelli just can't say the same. He's been running for office for 10 years. First was kind of trying to hedge his bets as a moderate guy. Now has been 100% MAGA. Can't find a single thing to disagree with the president on. Says he gave him an A in the debate that they had the other day. And also is just a real chicken in terms of standing up to him on this Gateway Tunnel funding stuff. I think Jamal, you're living in New Jersey. That's a really important infrastructure project.
Yeah.
Not just for getting people to and from where they need to go, but also 100,000 jobs on the line. And he says he's on the phone with Trump all the time, and he won't even say that to him. So I think when we're talking about the stakes, New Jersey's a place that we're taking it very seriously. But again, I think Mikey Sherrill's really keyed in on a lot of issues that are hitting home for New Jerseyans, and it'll be a little tight, but I think she'll pull it off.
So we're seeing big turnout in the early vote. Saturday and Sunday in New Jersey, they had in-person early voting. The numbers I saw were about 163,000 people showed up on Saturday and Sunday. It was Democrats with a slight advantage. Um, Here's my concern about this election and the one coming up in the midterms in 26. The Republicans are talking about having poll watchers on election day, and a lot of people showing up at polls to kind of watch. I imagine Latino populated places they will have a lot of people. How are Democrats hedging or making sure that their voters are going to be able to actually get into the polling places and express their Democratic point of view when Republicans seem like they're ready to play an old school playbook here with some voter intimidation?
Well, I know both campaigns have been taking this very seriously in terms of voter protection and have been in touch with everybody who is in charge of these precincts and making sure you can get in, make your voice heard, and then get out. And so I know that they're taking that very seriously and have plans to make sure that you can, get to the polls and make your voice heard. And I think you said this, Jamal, like on Saturday, we saw turnout that was closer to 2024 than it was to 2021. I think that bodes well for Democrats, but again, we're taking nothing for granted. So if you're in New Jersey and you haven't made a plan to vote yet, I encourage you to head to the polls and do that.
All right. Well, that sounds good. Anything else you want to bring up before we take off today? I'm thank you for being here.
I'm excited about these two, but then we have 36 governor's races for our midterm map next year, which is really crazy. So, for folks who are watching and listening, these governor's races, I think, are becoming even more critical for people to pay attention to, get involved in. And so, if you're interested in supporting our work at the DGA, you can text DemGovs to 30201. We need all the help we can get to make sure that we're adding to our ranks and having really strong leaders in our states.
Give us that text message one more time.
Text DemGovs to 30201.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much for being here. The Democratic Governors Association is doing their part to get some Democratic governors elected, and particularly these two women, which I think is, I'm going to opine on something for a second. It's not
Mhm.
just important about these governors' races in the states, because it's going to be incredibly important to have Democrats in place so we have Democratic government. I also believe if we're going to have a woman president, which I think we ought to have soon, the more Democratic governors we have, the more Democratic chief executives we have, and we have one of those chief executives run for office, I think that's going to matter a lot. We haven't really had Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, who are phenomenal candidates, who did a really great job, but we have not had one who had real executive experience, whether it's a governor's office, a mayor's office, a CEO, that kind of thing. When that happens, I think the more Americans get used to seeing that, I think the better off we'll be and the closer we'll get to that final future. So
Well, Jamal,
that's
we think the bench is at the DGA, so we're on the same page.
all right. Sounds good. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.